Rolex is one of the most recognizable watch manufacturers, producing approximately 1 million timepieces per year. Rolex models have been worn by the likes of James Bond and other celebrities. Because of the popularity of Rolex, and especially models like the GMT Master 2 or Submariner, it is no surprise that there are replica Rolex models produced. Some signs that may point to being a fake Rolex include if the price is too good to be true, if the diamonds don't match or look like an afterthought, and if for some owning a Rolex is more of a status symbol and less about the mechanics or history of the brand, but buying a fake Rolex should never be the answer. I am committed to the integrity of luxury watches and employ trained watchmakers to inspect and authenticate every watch before entering our curated inventory. Our team takes watch fraud extremely seriously. When buying a watch online, regardless of the brand, it is important to trust your seller and do your research. While these tips which I'm going to provide are specific to Rolex, many cross over to other brands and models. Before jumping into the topic, don't forget to like and subscribe. Look for ticking of the seconds hand. The second hand can be a giveaway on the legitimacy of a Rolex. In mechanical Rolex movements, the second hand should appear smooth in movement compared to a ticking motion. You may also be able to hear a slight tick in a fake Rolex movement. Unauthorized seller. First and foremost, it is important you trust the seller of your watch. Look at reviews, other watches for sale, and don't be afraid to look them up for their entire online presence. If you're purchasing new, only go through an authorized retailer. If you're purchasing pre-owned on platforms such as eBay or any other online platform, do your research on the seller. If you're purchasing and you can see the watch in person, make sure to meet in a safe place and still do your research on the watch and seller. Mechanical movements. If you're able to get a photo of the movement, it should be mechanical. This means either a manual wind movement like in the Cellini collection or self-winding automatic movements like in the Rolex Kermit. There have been a handful of quartz models in production for approximately 25 years under the Oyster Quartz collection. These were either a date-just or day-date. No other models were produced with quartz movements. Check the weight. If you're able to see the watch in person before purchasing, feel it in your hands to get an idea of the heft. Rolex watches, even those produced in stainless steel compared to precious metals, have a good weight to them. Stainless steel in general weighs around 100 to 160 grams, with ladies being on the lighter side and steel sports watches closer to 160 grams. The gold models range from 190 to 220 grams, and the platinum models range from 240 to 270 grams. This can be slightly different in vintage models that used hollow links rather than the solid links we know today. Even with different bracelet weights in vintage versus new models, the watch case should still be heavier than most fakes. The caseback. Very few Rolex watches have an exhibition caseback. Only the Prince models in the Cellini collection have this display caseback. While we don't have an official reason behind this, there are a few reasons why Rolex would only use solid casebacks. First, a solid caseback will help keep the watch waterproof. Introducing an exhibition caseback adds more gaskets that need to be kept watertight. Another reason for a solid caseback is to keep the watch thinner. This extra sapphire crystal is known to make some watches very thick. A Rolex Submariner already sits between 12 to 15 mm thick, so adding a display back will make it even taller on the wrist. The solid caseback should also be free of engravings. This means that there should be no Rolex branding, logo, reference number, or other engravings. Some people do choose to have their caseback engraved to celebrate a special occasion, but these are also rare on the secondary market because of sentimental reasons. Of course, there are always exceptions to the rules, and there are a few special models, rare references, and some older lady date-just models that do feature engravings. Etchings and serial numbers. While there shouldn't be any engravings on the case back of most Rolex models, there should be a few places to look for specific engravings. Authentic Rolex watches will have their serial numbers deeply engraved, not something that is just scratched at the surface. Since 2002, Rolex has been micro-etching a crown logo at 6 o'clock. This is visible to the naked eye without a magnifying glass. Sometimes a tilt of the dial may help bring this to be visible. If the reference you are looking to purchase was produced in or after 2002, this should be visible. The engraving is difficult for counterfeiters to replicate. Also, more recently introduced is the Rolex that is engraved around the rehaut of the dial. The serial number is engraved in the rehaut at 6 o'clock. For older models, the serial number would sit on the case flank between the lugs at 6 o'clock. The model number sits on the case flank at 12 o'clock between the lugs. If you are able to get a picture from your seller with the case back off, there should be engravings on the inside of the case back. This should include the brand, material, and reference number. When looking at the engravings, they should have clean edges, no mess-ups, and no misspellings. Some of these things may also be hard to see or are not photographed in online listings, which is why it is important to do your full research on the seller and model for any specific details. Dial details. Similar to the engravings across Rolex watches, the writing on the dial should be examined, and this will be easier to make out in online listings. The text should be well spaced, no bubbling, and be straight. Double-check for any misspellings. While not as common today, older fake Rolex watches had Folex branding. While fake Rolex producers today are more avoidant of misspellings, this will be a dead giveaway. Check for specific coloring for dial features as well. The Rolex Explorer Sekou has a distinct red or orange hand depending on the year of manufacturing. There are also some Submariner models that are highly sought after, which may lead to counterfeits being made. A Cyclops lens may also lead to telling if the watch is fake or not. The magnifier over the date wheel on the crystal has been dubbed a Cyclops lens, and it should magnify the date. Early date-just models will not have a Cyclops lens because it wasn't introduced until 1953 on the date-just. The GMT Master and the Day Date both launched with the Cyclops. This magnifier is glued to the crystal and since 2005 has featured anti-reflective coating for reducing glare. The design and shape are inherently Rolex. Rolex watches with and without Cyclops lens. There are a few models that do not use the Cyclops feature, even if there is a date function. This includes the older Sea Dweller references, the Deep Sea, and of course models without a date like a Submariner, No Date, or Milgauss. It has been long argued among Rolex collectors that the Cyclops should be 2.5x magnification, and while the Rolex website previously mentioned this, the magnification level is no longer explicitly stated. Older models should still feature a pronounced magnification, and on fake Rolex watches, the date may be hard to read due to no or poor magnification of the Cyclops. Rolex only uses the best materials for their watches, many of which are proprietary in-house materials. Lesser materials will weigh less than authentic Rolex watches, and they may scratch more easily or be plated rather than solid. If you can see scratches on a case, they should be the same color as the surface material, not taking into consideration shadowing or reflections. Crown markings. Similar to the engravings on the case or markings on the dial, the crown you use to wind or set the watch should also have noticeable markings. Pre-1960 Rolex watches will feature the Rolex coronet with a cross. In recent models, the coronet is still there, but there are added bars or dots under. These bars or dots will symbolize the watch being either a twin lock or trip lock crown as well as the material. A steel or yellow gold twin lock crown will have a bar, while the platinum model will have a single dot. For a trip lock, a white gold crown features a larger dot between two smaller, compared to the platinum model with a small dot between two larger. The details of the listing and amp price. Does the deal seem too good to be true? Is the seller local where you can see the watch? Look for spelling mistakes in the listing and double-check the specific details of the model you are looking for through a trusted resource. Look at the box and papers if they are available. While having or not having accessories with a Rolex doesn't mean it is fake or real, these could help determine legitimacy.